Hey everybody, Jeff Antoniuk here. Welcome to Digging Deeper Jazz. Well, today we've got a very cool video lesson with Joe Henderson. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, full disclosure, Joe Henderson and I were not actually in the same room when I had this lesson with Joe Henderson. This lesson started a year before I was born in 1964. Joe Henderson was recording the Inner Urge album. And what an amazing album. I know it inside out. And the tune he played on there that he composed, Isotope, a blues that has some cool alternate changes. So when I started really digging into Joe Henderson years ago, I learned so much. I didn't have to be in the same room as him to learn so much. I was very lucky to get to hear Joe Henderson live quite a few times. Never talked to him about this tune, but I'm pretty confident I have a sense of what he was thinking about here. The neat thing is there's a nice melodic concept that we're going to learn and a harmonic concept. So this is sort of a 2-for-1 deal today. On the sheet, in item 2, what we see is the standard turnaround progression. And it is the 1-6-2-5 progression. Traditionally, in the key of C, it would be C major, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, the turnaround progression. And the idea is those chords, we start on C, and we progress to A, to D, to G, and we get back to C. It's this kind of cool circle of fourths, A to D to G to C. We jump to the A, which is a nice consonant sort of jump. So it is literally this turnaround. You get in this little loop and you can just play that song over and over again. And there's actually many songs that take advantage of that. So that is the last two measures of probably 3/4 of the songs in the real book, or songs that you would play at a jam session or on a jazz gig, and definitely any jazz blues. So I'm pretty sure that as Joe was thinking about how to make an isotope, literally, of the blues, how to make a different version of the blues, he was adding and subtracting some chord changes. And I guarantee he was sitting there thinking, man, this dusty old turnaround, what can I do a little different than that? And so if we look at item number 1 on the sheet, I imagine that this was his process. We start on C, we go somewhere, we go somewhere, we go somewhere else, and we have to get back to C. That's the amount of time. That's the length of this turnaround. I wonder what would work in there. This is like the jazz SATs or the Mensa exam or something like that. This problem-solving thing. I got this, I got that. There's 3 steps in between. What do I do? Now, other composers, arrangers, players have come up with their own version. So what Joe came up with, I don't know of a precursor before him. There may be one. But what he realized is if we go down in minor thirds, if you look at item number 3, if we're on the C, he realized if we go down to A7, then if we go down to F sharp 7, then if we go down to E flat 7, we get back to C. So there's this symmetrical stepping down that can happen. And I know Joe loved experimenting with symmetry, with chords that would move with particular repeating progressions. There's many examples. The name of the album, Inner Urge, well, the song Inner Urge from that album has this different but similar sort of thing. So this is definitely something that Joe was thinking about and experimenting with a lot throughout his musical life. So he has a new set of changes now, and there's a lot we can do with it, as I was saying. They are substitute chord changes in the sense that he's tossing out one set and he's substituting another. Okay, substitutes. They're not a substitute in the sense of a tritone substitute where the chords are literally synonymous. And if you know about tritone subs, you know what I'm talking about. These chords contradict each other. But they contradict each other in a cool kind of way, the organization, right? So here's the thing. You can apply Joe Henderson's chord changes to any song that has this 1-6-2-5 progression. So most of the songs you're playing as a jazz musician at some point have this 1-6-2-5 in there. So what I'm saying is you can superimpose, you can ignore those changes and play Joe Henderson's changes, and you'll notice that it sounds actually pretty cool. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put on a loop of 1-6-2-5 in C. C to A to D to G. But I'm not going to be playing that. I'm going to be playing C, A7, F sharp 7, E flat 7. And I'll sort of alternate and let you know what I'm playing where so you can hear the sound of what's going on. Right, so I think you can hear the places where I was playing more diatonic, inside the chord changes, sort of good bebop sort of stuff. And then when I would use his chord changes, I sounded different. Now, the chord changes made me select different notes, but they made me think differently too. Maybe those are the same thing, but I really felt like I was sort of in a different zone when I was thinking about his chord changes. They sounded more out. Perhaps they sounded more angular. You know, we can use those sort of words. They're a little bit subjective, but there is that symmetry, those minor thirds. So I tended to play ideas that was an idea that I would then transpose to the next level, transpose to the next level. So everything about what I was playing was kind of different. Now, you may decide, I like that sound, I don't like that sound, but it works. And the more you practice it, the more you get these ideas under your fingers and in your ears. This is a very usable thing. Some of you may have noticed that we get a diminished relationship here. The root motion, C down to A, down to F sharp, down to E flat, those minor thirds, that is the definition of diminished. That's a diminished chord right there. And very much the licks that I was playing came from the diminished scale. Here's the thing, I was not at all thinking about the diminished scale, at all. I was thinking about what's a good little melody in C? What's a good little melody in A? What's a good little melody in F sharp? So that's the way I was thinking, and it happens to give me a diminished sound. It happens to give me the diminished scale, but I was not thinking the diminished scale. And to me, that's important. I was thinking of melodies and harmonies, not thinking of the scale. So to me, that's a big one. And if you go back to video number 2, Scales Suck, that's sort of the premise there. Now, let's look at the last item on the sheet, and you can see what Joe Henderson was thinking over that melody. So for the tune Isotope, this is his melody from the last 2 measures of the tune. If you look at his melody, it's a little 3-note melody, the way I think of it, a little 3-note cell, if you want to call it that. And he's playing the third, the root, and the flat 7. Chord tones, simple chord tones on the A chord. And he plays those same chord tones on the F sharp chord, the same chord tone. It couldn't possibly be a simpler melody based on chord tones. He was letting the root motion, the harmony that he came up with, sort of do the work. So this is a great way to get involved with these chords, is to play simple little ideas. Again, what he did, you could come up with maybe a simpler version. How about 1 flat 7, 1? And I'll take that down in minor thirds. Etc., etc. So you can see how his melody was something I was using earlier. I was using his melody as a cool sort of toehold to use his harmony. So the melody was very, very simple. And then sort of to flip it around a little bit, I used his harmony to substitute in almost every song I play. Whenever you have a 1-6-2-5 set of chord changes, you can use his on occasion. You can kind of put him in there sort of according to taste, right? Just like cooking. Whichever spice you want to put in, you put in as much as you personally like, right? So it's very, very slick. His harmony and then the melody he played over top it. So I learned that from Joe Henderson. That was a fantastic lesson. I wish I could send Joe, like a coupon for a hamburger or something like that. Alas, that's not going to happen. But I learned so much from Joe Henderson, and I do know this symmetrical stuff is something he loved. So I really would like for you to give this a try and let me know how it goes for you. That's the important thing. I hope this tickled your brain in a nice way and hope it was interesting. Maybe it gave you some insight into this song that you've been listening to for 30 or 40 years. But I want you to give it a try. It's very, very slick. Stay in contact with me. Let me know what's going up and play some Joe Henderson. Have a great week.